Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to Underground Cinema. As most of you know, at the moment, we are interviewing as many filmmakers as we possibly can before the 15th Underground Cinema Awards, which takes place in the Royal Marine Hotel 15th of November. I'm delighted to say that I've got a great friend of mine here, a great pal. We go back a long time, Sean. Sean Breathnach is with me today, all the way from sunny Cork. And Sean's been nominated yet again in the Best Horror category. You're very welcome, Sean.
Thanks a million, Dave. It's a pleasure to talk to you as always. I don't know how sunny it is down here at the moment, but it isn't too bad.
Yeah, as I said, Sean, we go back so long. I was just looking, back through the records. Underground Cinema, we started in 2009, and our first season went from 2009 into 2010, and that's when you room back in 2010. We go back a while.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. I knew obviously that you've been doing this a long time, and we meet regularly either there or at other festivals around the place. I mean, fair play to you for keeping it going for so long. You know, it's been amazing.
Yeah, when we first met, Sean, I was very dark. I was a brunette. Now look at me.
I'm going to myself.
But we got back a long time, and it's we've been standing in your work to us over the years, including your feature film as well. So so much so that if I got a short film in from you, without the name of the director, I could be able to tell the style. I'd probably be able to say that's a Sean Breathnach film.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really great to hear, actually, because I suppose that's what you want. You know, you want to have a style, or you'd hope that you'd have a style, that you'd be doing something different. But and fair play to yourselves as well. Like, Underground Cinema has been an amazing support for not just for me, but for an awful lot of independent filmmakers in Ireland and all around the world, really, but particularly Ireland for so long now. You know, you're like, the films you screen are fantastic, and you give so many people an opportunity to get their work out there. So it's really is fantastic.
Well, we absolutely love it, and we loved this particular film that you sent in to us again. So the summoning, and you're a master attention, Sean. I have to say that. Can you tell us a little bit about the summoning and give us a synopsis of what the film is all about?
Yeah, it's the interesting thing about it is it works on its own, which is it's designed to do, but it's actually part of a trilogy of films. It does link in with Your Next and with Nightcrawler. The sort of preacher in it, if you call it that, is the same one in each, and there is a connection between the three. So I was very keen on making it. It's the sort of opening film. It's the prequel to Your Next, you could say, but it works as a standalone horror film. And I worked with Kathy Richardson in it, who was great, and John Ryan Howard, who I've worked with many times before. Both of them are fantastic. We got a beautiful cottage that had a lot of character to it, and just sat down for basically it was one night, but it was as always with these things, it was a long day and night of shooting. Yeah, so it's about a woman who gets a envelope of money in the mail one day, and she is wondering where it came from, but once she decides to keep it, it sets in motion a sequence of events that kind of leads her up to a sort of horrific occurrence.
Yeah, like the acceptance of the money sort of leads to very dark transformation, and it's done so well. It's the envelope. Is there symbolism there?
There is, yeah, there is. I mean, I suppose, like an awful lot of horror films, and I don't like saying too much about them, because people have their own way of looking at these things, and in many cases, their own way is the right way of looking at it. You know, you can take what you want, like people do from music or any art form, paintings or whatever, that they see, I suppose, metaphors for their own lives in it. I mean, in this case, I was just thinking of coming home and finding something like that, and how that would make you feel. But it's also about accepting things, and once you go down that path, it can take you further and further along. You know, rather than just deciding at the start, oh, this is nothing to do with me, I'm giving this back or whatever. Once you accept little steps down a dark path, you can end up fully invested in that dark path, you know. So that's the underlying story of it.
Yeah, and like horror, horror films in general, they awfully, they rely heavily on sound and visuals more so than the score, and you're a master at it. I mean, the your silences on screen are superb, and they really do create a lot of tension. Actually, I don't want to give too much away, but there's one of the best frights, one of the best cinematic frights, I think. I can recall is Exorcist 3. There's a scene in the hospital where it's a real bang. I remember seeing it in the cinema as well. And you're master at using that sort of technique as well. You do it in this one quite well, and I've seen it in others as well.
Sound, thanks a million. Yeah, I like you said about sound, it's so important, isn't it? Like in horror in particular, you know, when to use it, when not to use it, the particular sounds that you use, it does help so much in building up that tension and suspense, which is essential to having a horror film that's good. You know, it's something coming out of nowhere might give you a quick fright, but that sound can really help to build things up, especially if you've got, as in this case, a woman alone at home. You know, you could decide to do it silent, but certain sounds can really add to, no more than like if you wake up in the middle of the night to someone with maybe knocking really gently on your door. You know, it's like, it's not something you expect. Yeah. It's a scary sound, even though if you heard it during the day, it'd be a nothing sound. So a sound, you can play with it and you can have great fun with it, and it definitely it's a core part of making any sort of horror movie, I think.
Yeah, and your running time as well is excellent, you know, for that sort of tension. But I suppose you've just really got the one character, you know, so there's, it'd be pointless going on doing 15, 16, 18 minutes of this. You're roughly around the 7, shortly over the 7-minute mark, which is perfect.
Yes, I try to keep, well, I suppose each story has its own length and it does really fit into it, but you kind of know when you're writing the scripts. Usually my scripts are shorter because I do draw it out a little bit. So like the scripts for The Summoning would have been probably about 5 pages, and it does end up about 7. And I find that, as a rule of thumb for me, that's the kind of way it is. If I write things, I write them to be short, but I know with my own style it will be longer, a couple of minutes longer than what you would think looking at the page. If every page is a minute, usually I'll go another maybe 20% longer than that. But I do like to keep it, when it's a short, I like to keep it nice and tight with that, but still give it time to breathe, you know, give you a bit of time to know a little bit about the characters, so you're invested in their fate.
Yeah, you've worked extensively like in Irish horror. I mean, how do, you know, elements of Irish culture or mythology influence some of your films?
I suppose they for any Irish horror maker, they probably get in there, because like we all grew up hearing these stories, and like I remember my grandfather on my mother's side was always, as kids, was always scaring us with these stories. You know, I wish he passed away when I was quite young, and I wish he had been around longer so that I could have written down some of those stories, even though they do seep into everything, you know, because we have a rich history of Irish folklore and horror stories, and we'd all kind of know those stories. And I suppose then we try and put our own twist on them, or maybe our own experiences in life come in there, and or we bring these older stories into the modern age and put new twists on them, you know. But it is interesting because I'm actually working, well, I will be working on in January another short with a friend of mine down here, Matt Sullivan. He's very much into history, not at all into horror, and that's why we're working together. But he's got a rich folklore, you know. He's a Kerry man, and he's got rich stories from his family and from the older generations. So we're going to put together a short that will be very much based on Irish folklore, set back then, which I'm looking forward to. But like you say, it does seep into everything anyway, you know.
Yeah, every Irish family seems to have some sort of short story, about mythology, or the banshee is always the one my father used to talk to me about, combing her hair around the corners of the street screaming like mad, and that night somebody passed away. We were full of great Irish stories like that. And I was just thinking back to your feature film. Now, anybody that's able to pull off an independent feature film, I have to tip my hat off. And we screened your feature Beyond the Woods a couple of years back in Dunleary. It's a completely different animal to a short film. I'm just wondering, are you thinking about maybe doing another feature in the future, Sean?
You know, it's an interesting thing. I've always planned on it. I've written a lot more scripts since then with the idea of making those films. But I suppose earlier plans, the whole COVID thing through, for a couple of years there, where I was enthusiastic about getting something made. I've been sending different scripts out to producers, so just to see how that goes, rather than trying to make it again myself. But at this stage, I will probably shoot something next year. I'm working on a nice a feature that's very self-contained, in a location that would really lend itself to horror, and it's got great psychological elements. So I'm hoping to do it. But exactly like you said, making a feature is a different beast, and very, very time consuming and stressful. I mean, it's very rewarding too, no doubt about it, but the daunting to think about making it. And in a way, I kind of feel after making Beyond the Woods and everything that went into it, you take a few years, because your brain is fully aware of the torture that you put yourself through making it, whereas now that torture is all forgotten. So I feel like I'm ready to get back on the horse again. Now, if any of the producers in the meantime had come back and said, look, we'll get behind this, I would have definitely jumped at it, But some of the scripts that I've written would probably be at a budget level that would be hard enough for someone who hasn't done, we'll say, like I made my own film on a micro budget. You probably have to do a middle step before you could step up to someone trusting you with a few million quid, which is fair enough.
Yeah, like it is a different animal altogether. A short versus a feature film, they're completely different, really. And you're right. I mean, I produced a feature film as well, and that was my first time doing it. And would I do it again? Directly afterwards, you sort of said to yourself, never again. Just because you're right. Like, I can remember, it took 3 years out of my life. That's.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's going down the road and doing a feature film, they expect to have at least 2 to 3 years taken out of your life. You probably have, you've so much time in pre-production work trying to get everything ready. It's the finance. It's, when you're shooting, all the unexpected things that happen while you're shooting. Your budget's gone. You're starting to go over budget, and you're working around people's schedules as well. It's so difficult, and then once the film is made, then you've got another year of post production, and then you got to
Yeah,
get it up on the big screen. So you really, and you know what, Sean, but you know what's great at the moment, there's a lot of independent Irish feature films that are now popping up in mainstream cinemas, which is fantastic. So you've got at the moment you got like Maurice Carl's film there, Swingbout, produced by Cork Sinead O'Riordan. They're now going into their fourth week, which is fantastic. If you look at I interviewed Tony Kelly there yesterday. Tony's film, The Hurler, that got a 6 week run, you know. And you look at other films like Paddy Slattery with Broken Law, you know, he got his run directly after COVID and got his ifs and nods as well. And it's absolutely fantastic to see, you know, independent Irish cinema now in mainstream cinemas. I have to tip my hat off to, you know, the likes of the Omniplex and the IMC and movies at that Dundrum for taking a chance, because there's definitely an audience there, you know. I mean, to get a 4 week to 6 week run, has to be an audience there. Would you agree?
I agree 100%, and exactly all the films that you mentioned, and Baz Black's Dublin Crust as well in the cinema. I
Yeah,
saw them. I got to see them all in the cinema, which is amazing. I mean, it's where you want it, where you want your film seen, where you want to see any movie, you know, ideally. And like you say, it is great to see the support from Irish cinemas, no doubt about it. Like, they've really gotten behind these films, and great to see, like you said, the audience, because there is a great audience. And I saw Swingbout, since you mentioned it there, I saw it a couple of weeks ago here in the Omniplex. But it's got another week in the Arc now down here, and I was talking to people during this week who haven't seen it yet, but who are going to see it. And I would have thought, okay, well, after the first week or two, everyone who would want to see it will have seen it, but it's not the case. Word of mouth is spreading, so there's more and more people wanting to see these films. So it is fantastic, because, like you said, it's a tremendous undertaking to make them in the first place, years of your life, and it is wonderful to have that support from audiences and from the Irish cinemas too, for sure.
your film, the Summoning. How do you think that will go down? I mean, it's very early days now on the festival circuit, with an international audience. I mean, it is because there's very little dialogue in this film, which is, you know, there's only a little bit of dialogue in it, which could be subtitled. You know, if you're going to Italy or to France or whatever, Japan or whatever. It is the type of film that internationally can go down really, really well.
Yeah, you'd hope so. It's not necessarily that I try to keep my
Yeah,
films dialogue like low on dialogue, but it does turn out that way. And I suppose, like they always say, film is a visual medium, and horror works best. And this is just my opinion, when there isn't too much dialogue, when it's left to you visually to watch what's going on there. So hopefully it will. I do agree with you. It's so low on dialogue, as a good few of them are. You mentioned The Room even there, and The Room had very little dialogue in it too, and it did travel around the world and did really well. You know, went to places like Italy and Germany and France, and got great reaction. So hopefully this will be the same. You know, you would think that the dialogue, the low dialogue, would mean that it would be ideal for that. And do you remember that show that used to be on? Was it The Postman, that was on TG Cahir, and it had
yeah.
no dialogue, and that turned out to be an amazing success. It went all over the world, it went everywhere. So maybe maybe The Summoning can do the same for horror.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've screened an awful lot of short horror films over the years, and if I dig back into the archives, I can guarantee you, Sean, a lot of those short ones, you know, you know, 5 minute, 7 minute pieces, the dialogue is very, very scarce. It's all about the scare,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
and to keep your audience from, you know, from the very start. I mean, your master attention, because you don't switch off. The good thing about when you're watching one of your shorts is, Sean, you don't feel the time fly. It just goes by, you know, and you at the end of it, you say, God, that was just fantastic. What a great little short that was, you know. You're not looking at your watch or anything, or looking for the remote control. The running time's great. Your cast are always very good. You work with some great actors, and they really hit the mark, I think.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that way, and I suppose there's some really great actors around, and it is a privilege to work with them, and I always find it's such a thrill when you write something and you see things in your head, but I like to bring it to actors and leave them do their magic. I like to say very little at the start and just hand them the thing, and to watch them bring these characters to life in their own way uh, is thrilling. It is thrilling, and in this one, Kathy did an amazing job, and it's difficult because, like you said, there's no dialogue, so you're acting with everything else. You've got to get across the fear or the shock or the surprise or all of these things without saying anything about it. So there's a special talent to it, and luckily all the actors I've worked with over the years who have been amazing have been well able to do that and more.
Do you spend much time in post production, Sean? I visualize you sitting there in front of the computer, especially working with various tinkering maybe with various different sound effects or various different noises or I can imagine you spend a lot of time with
That is true. That's probably where I spend the most time. I Yeah, because the ideas, quite often I have an idea in my head, and once I've a little treatment written, I can write the scripts pretty quickly. They go through about 2 or 3 drafts, and then they're done. And then the shooting tends to be pretty quick as well, because like they're all made on a low budget, so you don't have the luxury of spending many days at it. But yes, post production is where everything takes time. Like you say, I do tinker a lot with sound. I tinker a lot with the color grade. Um, Little effects. I try to, because I'm not like, I can do special effects, VFX, but I wouldn't be anywhere near an expert at it. I'd be very very low level. So the things I do, I try to make sure that I do what's within my own means, and that it looks good. But still, I would spend ages and ages at it, right down to the frame. So you're right, I do spend an awful lot of time on it. But then I suppose you'd be aware that once it's out there, it's out there. So you want to get it exactly right, so that it feels right. Even down to cutting a frame or 2 frames or 5 frames off scenes. I can be very I don't know, obsessive about it, I suppose.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just out of curiosity, who would you be influenced by? I mean, you're a big horror film fan. Have you been influenced by any particular directors or writers over the years?
I'd say an awful lot of people have seeped in, like I would be, and I suppose all horror people would say it, a huge fan of Carpenter, like John Carpenter's films over the years. I would have watched them over and over and over again. So I do love his work. Mike Flanagan as well is amazing as an independent filmmaker, I suppose, coming out with Oculus originally, that short half an hour film, and to see where he's gone from that, which would have been around the time it would have been around 2009, I suppose, or 2008. He came out with that film, and to see where he is now with all those movies and TV series behind him, it's inspiring. But not only that, his films are fantastic too. So and I love David Lynch. So I've always watched his films. He's not someone that I try to emulate, but I would say that some of his style would creep in every now and again. I've been told it does, even though I don't intentionally do it. I wouldn't intentionally do anything, I suppose, but it's bound to seep into you, the films that you watch or the directors that you tend to watch the most of. And I suppose James Wan as well, with The Conjuring and Insidious and all that, all that work that he's put out lately. has been, has been inspiring too. So I suppose in terms of directors, they'd be ones that, that I would have watched a lot of over the years.
I'm going to give you a recommendation, Sean, and maybe I'll send you a link and I'll let you have a look at it. There was a short film sent in to us by a young director, and Anton Rivas Pertile is his name. It's a long name, but he directed a short film called In the Old Green Woods. Now, I was really, really impressed by that because it's heavily influenced by, Nosferatu. His use of shadows, and it's shot in black and white. And sometimes I dread, if I get a black and white film in, I dread them sometimes because if they're incorrectly graded, they look awful, But this guy shot it like 1915 style. He took, his brother was the editor on the film as well, Santiago. He, took out a couple of frames here and there to give it that sort of jagged look. The actors had the black makeup, around the eyes. The use of shadows was superb. They hand drew all the subtitles themselves, and put the subtitles up against the wall and shot them. And the use of the frame, the old oval shape style, picture frame, they did a brilliant job in it. And he's definitely, it's probably going to be on the festival circuit over the next year. I'd say it's only out to us there just recently, but keep an eye out for it because I think it really is. It was a really good piece of filmmaking. I might even send you the link and you can tell me what you think. But it's great to see some young up and coming filmmakers dabbling into the world of Irish horror as well.
Absolutely, that's amazing. What did you say the film was called?
Yeah, it's called in the Old Green Woods. That's what it's called. Yeah, so keep an eye out for it, and I might actually just send you a link, and you can have a look at it. But we screened it back in Delary back in September. It's great to see it on the big screen because it's so different when you're working on, say, 21-inch monitor at home, and then it's great to sit on the red plush seats and all of a sudden on a huge big wide screen. That cinematic experience is great, especially with the surround sound as well. You can't beat it, can you, Sean?
No, you can't beat it. There's nothing like it. I mean, watching a film like on a phone or on a small screen, it's not the same experience. And not only that, but watching it with an audience too. Like, I mean, my best experiences of watching films are with an audience, mostly at festivals, sometimes in cinemas, like always in cinemas, at festivals. But I'm just saying those experiences that really stand out are at festivals like Underground or other ones where I've seen films and seen the audience reaction, seen them on the big screen with the surround sound, with an audience around who are reacting to everything. It's amazing,
Yeah, even the body language. If you're sitting at the back, most directors don't even like watching their own films on the big screen. Because you're always a little bit critical. It could have done this better. Oh, it could have taken that out. It could, made it a little bit shorter. So I know an awful lot of directors that aren't mad about watching the films, but what is good is watching the body language of the audience. So you're sitting at the back and you can sort of see if somebody's tense. You can see their shoulders, if they're enjoying it. You can tell an awful lot from body language from the back if people are really enjoying the film.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I know you've done this as well because I've seen your posts on Facebook and that, where you've gone to re-releases of older films in the cinema as well, and I find that really amazing. Like, watching, even though we've seen these films a million times, and you'd imagine a lot of the audience have as well, but sitting there with the audience watching something like I don't know, Back to the Future or whatever, it's amazing. Like, it still has that power all these years later with an audience in the cinema. It shows the magic of film,
Yeah, do you know something? It's funny you mentioned that, Sean. One of the things that we are going to look at doing, and hopefully we'll do it next year, is so at Underground Cinema we probably screened. We reckon we're 3,500 to 4,000 films over the past 15 years.
Wow.
And we inadvertently actually created an archive. We have all of these films still on file, And you know, I can remember some standout films, you know, going back 10, 15 years ago that people will never see again. They're probably in a drawer somewhere. They're young filmmakers now that probably were still in primary school when a lot of these films were being made. So what we're thinking about doing is maybe next year, as part of the festival, is sort of sort of retrospective of some of these films that we first screened, almost like, you know, the top 20 films that we can remember that had like such a big impact when we were watching them, and bring the directors along, you know, and to talk to the audience, the younger audience that are there, about the trials and tribulations that they had back, you know, 15 years ago. And it's very different. You know, the technology has improved so much compared to, say, 15 years ago. People are making films in the bedrooms now. And I think it might be interesting to hear the challenges that people had, you know, 10, 15 years ago compared to now. And to showcase some of these incredible works of art that are really not going to, let's face it, they're not really going to be seen again, you know. So I think it might be a good idea to showcase again.
That's an amazing idea. It's a brilliant idea because, like you said, it's a horrible thought to think that these films will be lost, you know. So it's great to give them life once again, you know.
Yeah. Well, maybe we might do some of your older work as well, Sean. We'll have a look. Look, Sean, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks a million so much for joining me today. We're going to be posting this up on Halloween. We'll all be watching this on Halloween night. So thanks for everything, Sean. And we look forward to seeing your brilliant work in the near future.
Thanks a million. As you can see, I have a bit of a cold here, getting the winter starting early. But thanks a million for this. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.